But when you take the spirit that comes from that, and see, in church, they preach love, they preach love, they preach love, and God is love.
Did you know that some of Hollywood's biggest names have been accused of hosting secret parties where careers are made or destroyed based on how far someone is willing to go? Jaguar Wright has ripped the lid off these dark truths, exposing the exploitation, manipulation, and power games that define the industry. If this is just the tip of the iceberg, how much darker does Hollywood's hidden world really get? Jaguar Wright, a voice that refuses to be silenced, has been pulling back the curtain on this world, and the truths she reveals are as unsettling as they are eye-opening. Think about it. From the outside, fame looks like the ultimate dream. You get money, recognition, and opportunities that most of us can only fantasize about. But what no one tells you is the toll it takes. Jaguar Wright has spoken about the invisible chains that bind young artists to a system designed to extract as much as it can from them, emotionally, physically, and financially. These stars are pushed to their limits, forced to project happiness and confidence while dealing with unimaginable pressure behind the scenes. Wright paints a vivid picture of a machine that doesn't just demand talent, it demands obedience and submission. It's not just about making hits, it's about playing the game and staying silent.
The woman that they're saying is his mother was a prostitute and a whore. But there's whispers in the streets of Harlem that Diddy's mother isn't alive. Not his biological mother, that woman is his aunt.
Take Justin Bieber, for instance. His interview about Billie Eilish went viral, not because he was promoting a new song, but because of the raw emotion in his voice. He was almost in tears as he talked about wanting to protect Billie. "I just want to keep her safe," he said, and you couldn't help but wonder. Safe from what? Justin has been in the industry since he was a kid. He's seen things, experienced things. For him to make such a plea publicly says a lot. And then, when you think about the whispers surrounding other young stars like Millie Bobby Brown and her peculiar relationship with Drake, the puzzle pieces start to fit. It's almost as if there's an unspoken rule in Hollywood. You play along, or you pay the price. And if you're young and vulnerable, the stakes are even higher. What's even more jarring is the way celebrities are forced to live double lives. The person you see on stage or in movies isn't always the person they are when the cameras are off. Public personas are carefully crafted to keep up appearances, while the private lives of these stars often spiral into chaos. Jaguar Wright has talked about the lengths people in Hollywood go to in order to maintain this illusion. From attending secretive parties with disturbing undercurrents to hiding personal struggles like addiction or exploitation, celebrities often juggle two conflicting realities. If there's one thing Jaguar Wright has been screaming from the rooftops, it's this: Hollywood isn't the dream factory we've been sold. Take Millie Bobby Brown, for example. She's barely out of her teens, but stories have circulated about her troubling relationship with Drake, who, let's be honest, has no business texting a teenager. It's not just her. Janet Jackson, a music icon, had her share of issues as a young artist. Jaguar Wright touched on how Janet's early development on shows like Good Times made producers uncomfortable, not because they cared about her well-being, but because they saw her as a liability. That's what makes this so horrifying. These young stars are seen as commodities, not people. They're groomed, manipulated, and coerced into situations they don't fully understand, all while being told it's part of the business. And the power dynamics? They're always skewed.
We gotta learn how to stop making ditties. What made him him? Now his pedigree comes from rat background. His father was a rat, snitch. Not revered.
The people at the top, the producers, the label executives, the directors, hold all the cards. They know that these young artists are desperate to succeed, often willing to do whatever it takes to stay in the game. The result is a culture of silence, where victims are too afraid to speak out and perpetrators face no consequences. Jaguar Wright has pointed out how these power imbalances create an environment where abuse not only thrives, but is normalized. It's like an open secret everyone knows, but pretends not to see. Then there's the dark side of Hollywood's infamous parties. These aren't the fun, champagne-fueled gatherings you might imagine. Jaguar has spilled the tea on what really goes on, and let me tell you, it's chilling. Diddy's parties, for instance, have been at the center of countless allegations. Guests have shared stories of being drugged and waking up in compromising situations, unsure of what happened to them. It's like walking into a lion's den without realizing you're the prey. These parties are less about networking and more about control, getting dirt on people, compromising them so they can be manipulated later. And don't think this stops at actors and influencers. The music industry is just as toxic, if not worse. R. Kelly's story is perhaps the most infamous example. For years, he used his position to prey on underage girls, and somehow, the industry turned a blind eye. Jaguar Wright herself has pointed out how this behavior isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a larger system. She's spoken about Melissa Ford, a video vixen who detailed how being in the industry often felt like being part of a high-class escort service. Women were expected to play along, and if they didn't, their careers suffered. What Jaguar makes clear is that this isn't just about a few bad apples. The entire system is rotten. Labels, managers, and producers often work together to maintain their power, using fear and manipulation to keep everyone in line. They control the narrative, deciding who gets to rise and who gets left behind. It's a cycle that perpetuates abuse because calling it out would mean dismantling the very foundation the industry is built on. The saddest part? This has been going on for decades. It's not just a modern issue. Jaguar Wright's revelations tie back to stories from the 90s and even earlier, showing how deeply embedded this culture is. It's a system that doesn't care about talent or artistry. It cares about money and control. And if that means exploiting a few young stars along the way, so be it. When Jermaine Dupri said that R&B lost its power because kids stopped going to church, I couldn't stop thinking about how much sense that makes. Music used to have a soul, literally. It was rooted in gospel, in spirituality, in something bigger than ourselves. She's right when she says that without God's love in music, all we're left with is raw emotion, impulse, and instinct. And honestly, doesn't that describe the state of entertainment today? Think back to the days when gospel and soul-shaped music. It wasn't just about hitting the right notes. It was about moving people, stirring something deep inside. That's why artists like Ray Charles caused such a stir when they blended gospel sounds with secular music, because they were taking something sacred and making it accessible to everyone. But over time, as Jaguar puts it, that sacred connection was stripped away. The industry turned music into a product, something to sell, and in the process, it lost its spiritual anchor. Now, instead of love and connection, music often feels like it's about lust, greed, or power. It's catchy, sure, but does it touch your soul? Not really. And then there's the darker side of this decay, the stuff Jaguar has been brave enough to talk about. She's not just saying that music has lost its spirituality. She's pointing out that the entertainment industry might have actively replaced it with something else entirely. She's spoken about rituals, symbolism, and even allegations of occult practices in Hollywood. I mean, when Jaguar tells you she had a Baphomet tattoo, a symbol of the devil, on her body for protection, it sounds like something out of a horror movie. She covered it up later, but the fact that she felt the need to get it in the first place says a lot about the world she was navigating. Before we continue with the video and my further explanation about the problems with Hollywood's hidden truth, I want to ask for your help. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs by the end of the year, so I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and help me out. Okay, let's continue. Think about it. Why are there so many stories about strange rituals and dark ceremonies in Hollywood? It's not just conspiracy theories anymore. People like Jaguar are coming forward with first-hand accounts. She's talked about how these symbols and practices aren't just aesthetic choices. They're part of a system designed to control and manipulate. When she explains how these tattoos and rituals tie you to something bigger, something darker, it makes you wonder how much of it is happening right in front of us without us even realizing it. But here's the thing. It's not just the artists and industry insiders who are affected. The entertainment we consume, TV, movies, music, has a way of programming us too. Jaguar often mentions how society is being groomed through what we watch and listen to. Shows like The Walking Dead or movies like The Body Snatchers might seem harmless, but are they preparing us for something? Are they normalizing ideas we'd otherwise reject? It's not just about zombies or sci-fi. It's about how these narratives shape our perceptions of what's possible, what's acceptable, and what's real. The more Jaguar talks about this, the more you start to see it everywhere. Music that glorifies violence and materialism. Movies that desensitize us to suffering. Social media that encourages us to chase clout instead of connection. It's like we're all being subtly nudged in the same direction. Away from love, away from empathy, away from ourselves. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. When you really start to peel back the layers of Hollywood, you realize it's not just about talent or luck. It's about power. The people who control the industry aren't always the ones in front of the camera. They're the ones behind it, pulling the strings. Jaguar Wright has spoken openly about this, naming names and pointing fingers at the so-called gatekeepers of the entertainment world. These are the people who decide who gets a shot, who stays at the top, and who falls off the map. Take someone like Clarence Avant, often called the Black Godfather. He wasn't just a producer or a manager. He was the bridge between raw talent and the corporate world. Jaguar Wright has highlighted how figures like Avant and Clive Davis hold incredible influence over artists. They aren't just shaping careers, they're shaping the entire narrative of the industry. If they like you, you're golden. If they don't, good luck getting your foot in the door. Wright paints a picture of an industry where everything comes with strings attached. You don't just make it because you're talented. You make it because someone in power decided you were useful to them. But it gets darker. Jaguar doesn't just talk about the gatekeepers managing talent. She suggests that the entire industry might be a front for far more sinister activities. There's been speculation for years that Hollywood is tied to illicit networks, including sex trafficking and exploitation. Jaguar connects the dots, pointing out how organized crime, whether it's the Italians, the Jews, or other powerful entities, has had its hands in entertainment from the very beginning. The idea isn't just that Hollywood makes money, it's that it launders money and creates opportunities for these networks to operate in the shadows. What's scary is how well hidden it all is. Think about it. Why are so many big names involved in scandals that mysteriously disappear? Why are there so many stories of abuse and exploitation that never lead to arrests? Jaguar has hinted that this isn't by accident, it's by design. Hollywood doesn't just make stars, it makes scapegoats and shields to keep its darkest secrets safe. And the tools they use to do this are as twisted as the secrets themselves. One of the most chilling revelations Jaguar Wright has shared is about blackmail. According to her, recordings, whether they're of intimate moments, compromising conversations, or worse, are a common currency in Hollywood. It's not just about catching someone doing something shady. It's about owning them. Once you have something on someone, you control them. Wright talks about how these recordings are used to manipulate people, forcing them to stay silent or comply with demands. It's a cycle of fear and control that keeps the powerful in power and the vulnerable under their thumb. Think about the stories of people walking into parties and finding themselves in situations they never signed up for. They're drugged, filmed, and then told, "If you ever speak out, this will ruin you." Jaguar's insights make it clear that this isn't a rare occurrence. It's a pattern. The industry thrives on secrets, and those secrets are the chains that keep people in line. When you think about R. Kelly, it's hard not to feel a mix of anger and disbelief. For decades, his name was tied to hit songs, sold-out concerts, and an image of success. But behind the curtain was a man using his power and fame to prey on young girls. And the worst part? Everyone knew. Jaguar Wright has spoken about this at length, calling out the system that allowed R. Kelly's behavior to go unchecked for so long. She's not just talking about him, though. She's talking about how the industry protects people like him. It's a pattern, one where exploitation isn't just overlooked, it's baked into the system. R. Kelly's legacy isn't just about his crimes, it's about what those crimes say about the music industry as a whole. How many executives, producers, and managers knew what he was doing and stayed silent? Jaguar points out that this silence isn't just complacency, it's complicity. People look the other way because Kelly made money, and in Hollywood, money trumps morality every time. What's even more disturbing is how this pattern has evolved. Back in the day, exploitation was more hidden. Now, it feels like it's out in the open. Just look at how the media glorified Kelly's infamous tape, which should have ended his career immediately, but instead became a twisted piece of pop culture. Wright argues that this normalization is part of a larger, more sinister trend in entertainment. And then there's Janet Jackson. She's an icon, no doubt, but even she wasn't immune to the darker side of the industry. Jaguar Wright has shared stories about Janet's struggles, particularly when she was younger. She's talked about how Janet's early development made her a target for unwanted attention, even on the set of Good Times. Can you imagine being a child, just trying to act and having to deal with that kind of scrutiny? It's disgusting, but it's also telling. Even someone as powerful as Janet wasn't safe from the predatory culture of Hollywood. Then there's Diddy, a name that Jaguar has brought up repeatedly in her revelations. According to her, Diddy isn't just a music mogul. He's a manipulator who has used his position to control and exploit those around him. Jaguar doesn't mince words when she talks about Diddy's infamous parties, which she describes as anything but glamorous. She's mentioned allegations of drugging, coercion, and worse. Stories that paint a picture of a man who isn't just ambitious, but dangerous. What's chilling is how these allegations are often dismissed or swept under the rug. Diddy's power isn't just in his money, it's in his ability to make things disappear. And speaking of disappearances, Jaguar has also touched on the strange, unexplained deaths that seem to haunt Hollywood. Take John Amos, for example. The details surrounding his passing are murky, to say the least. Jaguar has pointed out how these deaths often come with whispers of foul play, especially when they involve people who might have known too much. Then there's Angelo, someone Jaguar cared deeply about, who also passed under suspicious circumstances. She's hinted at connections between these deaths and industry retaliation, suggesting that when people step out of line or become a liability, they're quietly removed. It's not just a conspiracy theory when you start connecting the dots. Hollywood has a long history of silencing dissent, whether through legal threats, public smears, or in some cases, something far more permanent. Jaguar's stories force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The entertainment industry isn't just about art and creativity. It's a system that thrives on control, secrecy, and, when necessary, elimination. For every star who makes it, how many are chewed up and spit out, or worse? Wright knows this better than anyone. By exposing Hollywood's dirty secrets, she's put a massive target on her back. The backlash has been relentless. She's been called crazy, blacklisted from opportunities, and even faced threats to her safety. But despite all that, she refuses to stay silent. Imagine being in her shoes. It's not just about losing work or being labeled as difficult. The kind of retaliation she faces goes deeper than that. Wright has talked about being followed, harassed, and even fearing for her life. When she talks about the $250,000 bounty that was allegedly placed on her head, it's a chilling reminder of how far some people will go to silence the truth. And yet, she keeps going, exposing more names, more stories, more of the system's rot. It's a level of bravery most people can't even fathom. But the cost of exposing Hollywood's dark side isn't just personal, it's systemic. Whistleblowers like Jaguar face isolation, financial ruin, and constant danger. The entertainment industry has a way of protecting itself, and that means silencing anyone who dares to pull back the curtain. Think about it. How many stories have you heard about artists who speak out, only to suddenly disappear from the spotlight? They're labeled as problematic, unstable, or unreliable, and their careers are over. Jaguar isn't just fighting for herself, she's fighting for every artist who's too scared to come forward, for every victim who's been silenced. Her courage shines a harsh light on the need for change. The entertainment industry has operated in the shadows for too long, and it's time for accountability. There needs to be transparency, real oversight that holds people in power responsible for their actions. But that kind of change doesn't just come from within the industry. It also comes from us, the audience. We have to demand better. We have to stop supporting the people and systems that perpetuate abuse. If we keep turning a blind eye, nothing will ever change. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.